In these classwork videos, I'll be first discussing the theoretical concepts using the PowerPoint slides. And then I'll work the problems out in Excel. These problems come from the textbook. And I'll be using the PowerPoint file that comes with the textbook. And I will be skipping some of the slides, not because those concepts are not important, they are important, but some of those concepts in the slides are very well covered in the textbook. So when you do your reading assignment, when you read the chapters, you can get the concepts directly. And there is not a whole lot that I could add by going through this and bore you to death, I guess. But if you do have any questions in any of them, then I'll be more than happy to go over that in more detail. So, in other words, I'll be touching upon important slides. I'll be skipping some slides. Please don't think that those slides are not important. You will pick up those concepts from your reading assignment. Okay, so let's get started with chapter 1, which is an introductory chapter. So we're going to look at some basic concepts and then a very simple model, and that is the break-even point model. It's a very simple one, so that will get us started. Okay, and these are learning objectives. I'm going to skip these. Here are some examples of how quantitative analysis has been used in the industry and what dollar value benefits can be derived from such use. And there is lots of examples like that. So here is a basic overview of what quantitative analysis is. So you have raw data coming in and you do the quantitative analysis, and from that you get meaningful information, insights with which you make hopefully intelligent decisions that will be beneficial for the company. So the idea is you take raw data, do the analysis. Analysis is for gaining insights which will then support management decision making. So here are some examples of quantitative analysis that can be used in production and operations management, supply chain. Then there is a seemingly new field coming up in business analytics, where quantitative analysis are very extensively used. So business analytics is a data-driven approach using large big data and coming up with insights that will be useful for decision making. And there are three, some people make it into four: descriptive or visual analytics, predictive analytics, and prescriptive analytics. Prescriptive analytics is something that we'll be covering in this course. We'll be doing some predictive analytics as well, like forecasting. So here is the chapter mapping of these three broad analytics areas. Okay, so let's spend a little bit of time here. Quantitative analysis approach. Okay, what are the major steps in quantitative analysis? So we start with defining a problem, developing a model, acquiring input data, developing a solution, testing the solution, and then analyzing the results, sensitivity analysis, and then finally implementing results. And we're going to assume that the problem has been defined and the data is available to us. Okay, these two are more practical oriented situations where we are going to be more on analysis focus. So we'll take a defined problem and we'll develop a model, and then using the data that is given along with the problem. So once we have the model developed, we solve the model, develop a solution, and we test that solution to see whether the solution is valid or not. And then we will do analysis of the solution. We call that sensitivity analysis. Okay, so that's what we will be doing. Once that is done, then the decision or the decision that is made based on the analysis gets implemented. Okay, let's look at each of these in a little more detail. So defining a problem. So this is the most important step. So it looks at you have a business problem and then you want to solve that business problem. So you need to define what is it that we need to solve. So one example could be you're spending too much money in inventory management. So you want to streamline your ordering process such that the inventory holding cost is minimized. Okay, so you have spending too much money on inventories. How do you, what needs to be done to minimize the inventory cost? Or it could be you are missing order deadlines. Okay, or you run out of stock very often. Okay, so then what do we do? So is the problem because we are not forecasting our demand properly? Or is it because that we are not managing our inventory properly so that you have sufficient stock to meet the demand? So you need to narrow your problem area, define the problem in clear terms so we can then proceed to the next step. So that would be developing a model. So it's a mathematical model. We'll be using Excel for developing these mathematical models. And one simple example would be the revenue model. So you have sales and advertising. So is there a relationship between the two? Okay. So is there a mathematical model that we can fit with which we can predict what sales will be based on advertising expenditure? Okay, that kind of stuff. Now developing a model would be to come up with the variables, okay, and the parameters. Okay, parameters would be given or something that is beyond your control. That is given. Okay, like purchase cost. Okay, what is the cost of the item? Okay, that's something that is given. The known quantities, okay, that are coming into the model. And variables are decisions that you have to make. Okay, like for example, the cost of the product coming in. Okay, that comes in with the standard cost, comes in from cost accounting department. Okay, you don't have control over that, but that data is available to you. Now, as a marketing manager, suppose you have the now you need to make a decision as to how much you're going to charge your customers. What is the price that you're going to sell your product at? So that would be a decision that you have to make. Then that is a variable that is called a decision variable. In a different example, suppose you have demands that you have to meet and you need to maintain and the demand fluctuates, let's say. Okay, demand goes up and down, but you have to maintain a steady level of production for stability reasons. There are some reasons why you don't want to keep your production go up and down. So what is the steady state level of production? Okay, how much should you produce? Okay, so then that would be your decision variable. Then that decision variable will result in certain outcomes like cost. Okay, so if you maintain your production rate at 100 units per week, then what would be the production cost, what would be the inventory holding cost, and so you need to gather all that information, and then you can solve the problem that minimizes the cost. So that would be your developing the model. So, and then once you have the problem defined and you know what to do, then you gather data. How good your solution is, how effective your solution is that comes out of the model depends upon how valid and accurate the data coming in is. So that's garbage in process and garbage out. Now developing a solution, and there are several ways in which we can go about doing this, and we'll be looking at something like GoalSeek, Solver, and these are the methodologies that we'll be using in Excel. Solving equations, doing by trial and error, and using an algorithm. So we'll be looking at some of these when we set up those models. Then once we develop a solution from the model, then we have to make sure that the solution is valid. So testing the solution to make sure that the solution that we have is accurate and is consistent. And analyzing the results is, what if the input that's coming in has some variability? So standard cost coming in from your cost accounting department. So suppose if it changes, instead of $5 a unit, it's $5.10 or $4.85. So if there are any variability in the input data, okay, now how will that affect the results or the solutions that we have found? So that would be analyzing the results, and then finally implement the results based on the solution that we have found.